Imagine being with friends on a tranquil lake, fishing, and suddenly hooking a secret that could shatter your worldview. This is where our story begins. A simple afternoon. A conversation that delves into the soul, reveals the hidden fractures behind a marriage. But these are not ordinary cracks, they are an abyss of betrayal and deception. When trust collapses and the truth emerges, will you choose to face it or run away? Our protagonist chose the latter. But can running away really solve the problem? Want to know what happens next? Be sure to follow our channel for more. After many years of marriage, it might be difficult to maintain amicable ties because most of your time is spent with your family. But I managed to strike a balance on a recent camping trip with pals. I discovered the awful truth about my wife, prompting me to conduct my own inquiry. Some males are utterly unaware of this. I was one of them once. Men who don't notice this should have a designated meeting location where we can gather, have a few glasses and admit our ignorance. The only difficulty is that we will most likely not understand this meeting. This is for us. Elaine and I married when we were 20 years old. We spent so much time together that we reared 3 children while also having fun in between pregnancies. I attempted to follow the book's recommendations, presenting myself as a devoted husband. When Emily left to college, I wondered how Elaine would spend her time after her children were grown. It found out that she chose to volunteer at the hospital. She worked 3 days a week, alternating between the gift shop and the children's playroom, among other places. Despite the fact that our children were no longer at home, our circle of friends remained close and met frequently for barbecues and house parties. Because of our shared interest in fishing, I got particularly close to 3 of the males in our group. We frequently scheduled weekend excursions together, generally 4 or 5 times per year. I used to think that our marriage was just like everyone else's, a regular lifestyle for the couples around us. Our children have grown and gone away. Our ladies were preoccupied with other things. Some were working, while others weren't, and we, the spouses, were fixated on our careers, counting down the days until retirement. On the fishing excursion we talked about it all, occasionally delving into deeper issues like relationships and intimacy. In May 4 of us went fishing. We sat on the boat, staring at the water while my fishing line vanished beneath the surface. Our conversation began with Michael discussing his recent trip to Stanford to see his kid. He explained how his wife discovered an empty contraceptive packet in her son's room, which distressed him greatly. In answer, Christopher shared his experience returning home from visiting their daughter at college. Rebecca admitted to his wife that she was in an intimate relationship with her lover. We smiled when he mentioned a young guy who was always wearing unclean clothes, slouching and in severe need of a shave. Kevin remained silent for a moment. I sensed Kevin's thoughtfulness and said, "What are you thinking about? You appear to be deep in thinking." He hesitated before responding. "I don't want to say anything if I'm mistaken. I may start something that offends someone. And if I am correct, it might harm all of us. Did you witness anything, or is this speculation?" I inquired after a brief pause. Not distracted by fishing, he eventually confessed. "I observed your wife park the car behind the Marriott when I questioned him 3 weeks ago. In the day before yesterday," he said. Michael interjected. "Are you suggesting Nick's wife is unfaithful?" "I cannot confirm her behavior. I've only seen her at the Marriott twice in the past month," Kevin explained. "I bring groceries to the Marriott 3 times a week, just like every other hotel in the neighborhood." Christopher nodded, understanding his mistake and reflecting on the situation. I couldn't help but wonder why Elaine would visit the Marriott twice a month. Is she unfaithful to me? I stayed with the group to fish, not wanting to confess my concerns about Elaine's infidelity. By leaving back in town, I picked up Michael's car and drove home, only to discover that Elaine had left. I sat down at my computer, thinking about how to discover the truth about her whereabouts. I spent the next few hours looking for hints online and eventually ordered goods that could aid my inquiry and had them delivered to my office. When Elaine returned, I began flirting with her, But she waved me away claiming she had a headache. It was expected within the next week. Elaine and I continued to live our lives normally. But I couldn't shake my concerns. I paid great attention to her. She even called her at random times. However, everything was well. At night after getting the box, I went into the garage and secretly installed a GPS tracker on her car to follow her activities. The next day, I received another package and decided to install it so that I could discreetly listen in on discussions in Elaine's car. The next morning, Elaine said at breakfast that she had no tasks at the hospital and was going shopping. From my office, I kept a close eye on her as she walked to the mall and then the market. She returned home with her shopping at 1 p.m. At 1:30 she stepped outside again, driving south for 10 minutes, then east for another 10, until she arrived at the Marriott. I decided to leave the workplace and follow her to the Marriott. 5 minutes later, I discovered her car and parked nearby. Unseen but with a clear view of it. She left the hotel at the specified hour 4:20 and went straight to her car as she was leaving. She observed Sophia Gray exiting the same way. They nodded as she drove past him. Sophia Gray's arrival startled her, as he was married to one of the most stunning women in their social circle. After he went, she remained in the parking lot until the phone rang. The voice on the other end seemed distant. Nick. Elaine, why not simply say hello? She inquired. Confused. Hello, what do you want for dinner tonight? How about trying something new? Perhaps a hot sauce dish. Oops, we ran out of sauce. Do you have any further ideas? Perhaps something fresh and healthful like a salad or grilled salmon. I attempted to redirect the talk to the normal themes, distracting attention from my genuine emotions. What time will you get home? Around 5. That sounds wonderful. See you later. After I finished up the phone, a sudden thought hit me, and I decided to park and enter the Marriott. I spotted the daughter of one of my clients at the front desk, making small talk for a few minutes before I summoned the confidence to inquire. I heard my pal can stay here. Could you check it out? She asked his name without hesitation. Sophia, I said. Her fingers quickly tapped the keyboard, and after a few moments she responded. He checked into his room as usual. Every Thursday morning, he checks into a room and remains until the following morning. He is always choosing his room. He occasionally stays on other days, but on Thursdays he has a consistent habit. Back in January, the computer identified this trend. When questioned if it would be difficult to print out his notes, she wondered if no one would know about it. To this question, I promised him that this would not occur. Do you require a hard copy? She asked. Yes, please. I responded. She offered me a Marriott folder, which I wasn't sure I'd need right now, but I thought it would come in helpful. I put it in my briefcase and returned home. When I arrived, Elaine had prepared a salmon salad for us to enjoy together, along with tea. She also told me about her shopping trip, stating that she stayed at the mall until 1 p.m. and then stopped at the market on the way home. As she spoke, I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't speaking the truth. I excused myself and went to the bathroom inside. I noticed a damp shower and clothes in a laundry basket. Anger rose within me. How could Elaine have had a month-long affair with Sophia? It was clear that she was being dishonest with me. She settled on the couch with a book after dinner, while I went to the computer and scrolled through our social media feeds. I uncovered Sophia's wife's email addresses and, using another mailbox, I sent a message to her personal address, which she found unusual. My message was direct: if you want to find out when and where Sophia was cheating on you, please respond to this email. I have some evidence you might be interested in. I am not searching for financial gain. I mailed the letter at 8:10 and received the answer by 9. I have virtually the entire day off tomorrow and will be seeing the new house on Oak Street in Claremont. You are welcome to come to my house for lunch or to chat at any time when it is open. After that, I deleted both her and my emails before going to bed. Elaine joined me when I was already asleep. And by the morning, she had awoken and was getting ready for her day at the hospital. While I was getting ready for work at midday, I called Elaine and asked if I could take care of dinner that evening. "Are you planning on cooking? What is it exactly?" she inquired. "Is there a specific dish you would like me to prepare?" I asked. "Jambalaya," she exclaimed. "It's jambalaya." I reassured her. After confirming Elaine's GPS coordinates at the hospital, I quit my job as I drove past Sophia's office. I watched him and two other men enter the diner. I easily located a parking space, quietly installed another GPS tracker in Sophia's car, and then headed to the sandwich shop for lunch. I requested a sandwich for myself and a salad for Sophia's wife. At approximately 1 p.m., I parked near the open house sign and walked up to it. Helen blanched when she saw me. She got up fast, posted a sign on the street saying she'd be returning at 2, and returned to the house. We sat on the sofa, and tears flooded her eyes. She appeared to be on the edge of an emotional collapse and was unable to talk. I also felt a surge of terror flood over me as I hurriedly searched through my briefcase. When she finished reading them, I handed her the Marriott documents. Tears welled in her eyes. I apologized softly. She glanced up at me, her face reflecting her pain and vulnerability. "This horrible man has been cheating on me for several months. He was romantically involved with my wife Elaine. For at least some of that period. I really apologize," she said. She stopped wiping her eyes before firmly declaring, "He will pay for this. This piece of paper means nothing. We need hard evidence, and we must be prepared for the repercussions." I agreed. I have the inclination to act without thinking. We need to devise a well-planned strategy. Helen removed the lunch sign an hour later, and we talked for over 4 hours. Unfortunately, no one attended the open house, but before I left, we had made a plan in the late afternoon. While exploring the internet, I discovered a conference in Las Vegas specifically organized for specialists in my area, as well as another for real estate agents excited. I informed Helen, who expressed an interest in attending both events. As soon as my reservation was confirmed, I informed Elaine about the conference, emphasizing the prospects for making relationships. I encouraged her to join me, but despite her apparent eagerness, she begged for time to ponder and claimed she would respond the next morning. Meanwhile, Helen waited for Sophia to return home, informed him of the conference she intended to attend, and invited him to join her. Unfortunately, he was forced to give up due to a hectic schedule. The next day, Elaine called me at work to express her concerns about traveling to Vegas for 3 days and 1 night, as well as the long drive. She brought up the possibility of seeing her sister. Despite my efforts to conceal my dismay, we didn't go into detail about the vacation. The next day at work I phoned Henry Hawkins, my corporate lawyer, to ensure that Elaine had no personal or professional conflicts of interest. After validating the scenario, we discussed the potential outcomes of the divorce, and I meticulously documented our chat in a digital file. I spoke with him about the distribution of the family property and voiced my concerns about his fair treatment. He created a strategy for protecting me and my possessions, as well as organizing the acquisition of evidence in their affair. At 4:00 p.m. my phone rang, and Helen was phoning from a payphone. I had a room reserved at the Mirage Hotel. While she was staying at Treasure Island, she specified what she needed to bring with her, and I suggested her to bring a laptop, a personal phone book, and a cell phone that could be used in Vegas without incurring a large price. Elaine arrived in the evening just as I was finished packing and checked my suitcase. "You forgot your swim trunks," she said. I replied, "I have no plans to swim, however. A brief swim can help you feel refreshed after a long day of meetings," she advised, and I prepared the swimming gear, and she said nothing else. After packing my belongings, I loaded my luggage into the car and completed my evening tasks before heading to bed. I jokingly recommended Elaine have some fun in bed before the trip, but she appeared exhausted. "Maybe when you get back," She answered with a smile. I left about 7:30 a.m. Before daybreak the phone rang and I answered it. Helen was asking where are you, I said. I'm almost to Pomona. Then she remembered. There is a Denny's restaurant where we used to stop before heading to the fair. I confirmed. Is around 2 miles ahead, she said. Go there and I will see you in 20 minutes. Would you agree? I agreed. Of course, I am hungry. She said, why should I place an order for you? She refused and said, no, I will wait. You go ahead and start. I pulled onto the highway and parked in front of Denny's restaurant. Helen surprised me by wearing jeans, a loose Western-style shirt and boots. She welcomed me with a grin and sat down. And the waitress promptly brought her the menu and coffee. While we were ordering, I couldn't help but note how Helen was unlike the polished professional women I was used to seeing, especially at social gatherings. Helen protested after we finished eating that she would have to travel to Las Vegas by herself. I invited her to join me and she consented. She followed me to the nearby parking lot. When we arrived, I inquired about the cost of parking for 3 days and found it reasonable. We parked next to each other, and I helped her get her belongings into my car. Since none of us needed to go alone, we headed off together for the following 3-5 hours. We discussed plans. I drove the automobile while she made notes. We stopped in Baker to refuel and take a break. Our relationship evolved from our shared experience with infidelity in our marriage. However, we have now built a friendship. I felt a great connection with her despite the fact that we had never met before. On our journey we felt joy, melancholy, and a great sense of kinship. After leaving her off at a hotel in Las Vegas, I planned to meet her for dinner later. When in my room I called my lawyer and he laughed. She advised me that it was possible to return. He informed me that my wife had gone to her lover's place, where they were caught on film engaged in compromising actions in the backyard pool. Even today's issue of Time magazine is on the table next to them, encouraging them to act. Perhaps I should ask his wife to contact you. I wonder if she has already been contacted. If you both hire me, I can save you a lot of money. Thank you. Can I pose a hypothetical question? Of course. What happens if Helen and I decide to stay together in Vegas? Unless your wife or Sophia is tracking your whereabouts, nothing will change. We block both numbers. Do you want her to present the documents to him first, or before you return? No. I want to be present when the locks are changed before the documents are delivered to her. I'd also like to acquire a restraining order to keep her away from my business and house if possible. When should you start preparing everything? I'll speak with Helen and let you know. An hour later I arrived at Caesar's, the restaurant Helen had selected. We sat down at the table, talked, and proceeded to enjoy our dinner. Using my mobile phone, I contacted our lawyer and instructed him not to take any action until we returned. Meanwhile, I've directed my assistant to collect extra evidence while we're away. It is preferable to have more proof than not enough. Following the chat, we paid the bill and walked around the shopping center together, avoiding physical contact despite my great desire. I couldn't shake the fear that Elaine would cheat on me while I was away. We arrived at the taxi station, and she returned to her hotel. When she was ready to get into a taxi, I sensed her desire to kiss me and I reciprocated. But we controlled ourselves. The phone rang half an hour later as I entered my room. It was Elaine. It is becoming late. Where have you been? She asked. I ate dinner at Caesar's and went for a walk, I answered. I found a lovely outfit that I believe you'll like. Should I purchase it for you? Open your clothes, I asked. You know I rarely dress provocatively. I can't believe I'm nearly 50. So this is a rejection? Yes it is. However, if you come across a lovely necklace or other item of jewelry, I would be grateful. Okay. I will take a look tomorrow. In the meantime, I'm going to turn off the phone and rest. Good night. Elaine. Wonderful dreams. Good night. She never stated she loved me. When I finished my night's business and got into bed, I was ready to turn off the phone. There was a sudden knock on the door. Hello, I said. opening the door to let Helen in and closing it tightly behind her. I was standing in a towel while she was dressed in trousers and a Western-style shirt. Sophia was at home and didn't respond to my calls since he was laying in bed with your wife. I could not quit thinking about it during our cab ride to the hotel. I returned to my hotel and begged the receptionist not to disturb me for the night. I quickly made the bed and came straight here. She greeted me with a smile and a hug. I couldn't help but wonder. Are you here to exact revenge? She said initially. I wanted to be with you to avenge the betrayal that we both experienced. But now I don't feel motivated. Sophia damaged our marriage. I might be sad for years and pretend to be a victim. When melancholy music came on the radio, I was drowning in self-pity. Instead of collapsing into despair, I made the decision to modify my life and accept it as it was. I wanted you to be next to me in bed. But I did not want us to be intimate. I craved your company and love. But I wasn't ready for anything else yet. I put my arm around her shoulders and asked her what she liked. I like being loved and taken care of, she said. I responded, I will give it my all. I went into the bathroom and switched on the shower. We took turns showering and kissing before going to bed. Helen, I want us to lie down, hug, and fall asleep with our arms wrapped around each other, I said. Helen softly grabbed my face into her hands. A tear ran down her cheek. We exchanged gentle kisses before she climbed into bed. I made place next to her and she snuggled up, wrapped her arms around me. I gently kissed her on the lips, and we both fell asleep when I awoke. She shocked me with another kiss, resulting in a more intimate encounter between us. She took the initiative, and I couldn't resist her advances. We were both exhausted after a passionate meeting and chose to sleep some more. When we eventually awoke, it was nearly midday. After showering and dressing, we went to Helen's room, where she needed to change into fresh clothing. I phoned our lawyer, who told me that Sophia and Elaine had spent the night together in our marital bed. In addition, the photographer photographed several rooms in our home, including the backyard, bedroom, living room, and my computer desk. I'm grateful for the information. I thanked the lawyer and finished our meeting. Then Helen and I got in my car and drove to Lake Mead, where we had a discourse full of emotions ranging from fury to grief. We continued our trek. The anguish did not go away, and by the time we arrived in Kingman, Arizona, my heart was heavy with sadness. Our chat revealed that Elaine and I had lost the love and connection that we once enjoyed. We still loved our children strongly, but our love for each other had evaporated. Helen also saw that her relationship with Sophia had reached a breaking point. We stopped in Kingman for dinner before returning to Las Vegas. We were lost in our own thoughts, and time went by without us noticing. We talked about our life and future plans, including our goals for the coming years and what would happen to our children after the divorce. Back at the hotel, I packed my belongings, loaded my luggage into the car, checked out, and moved into Helen's room. She began to cry as we lay in bed together. Despite my attempts to remain solid like my hero John Wayne, I found myself on the verge of tears. Unlike my prior experience with Elaine, where our time together in bed was centered on achieving rapid pleasure, while lying in bed with Helen, I felt genuine joy that she was simply there for me. These new emotions were unlike anything I'd ever encountered before. The next morning, we had another private time before deciding to snooze. When we awoke, we got lunch and drinks in our room and prepared to leave. We exchanged passionate glances and kisses. When we got to the parking lot where Helen's car was parked, she inquired, "What now?" I also considered our next moves. "I do not want to share a bed with Sophia. I want to be with you. Let's exchange places," she said. She sat down and looked at me bewildered. "You stated that you wanted me to be with you, not Sophia. Sophia and Elaine have been doing this for a long time. Why can't we let them do it?" "Really," she responded. "Yes, let us do it. This way we won't feel furious, abandoned or offended. They will be able to realize their aspirations, and we will win. Have we won?" The true victory is waking up with you every morning and living with you. I said. But what if Sophia is only playing games with Elaine and does not truly want to be with her? In this instance, they will only receive what they deserve. If they give up honesty, they are missing two lovely people. People as well as their homes and family. Increased transparency would benefit all participants. I need time to think about everything. Let's meet at my office to go over everything in more depth. Have you enough time to think about everything? Allow me to clarify your suggestion that we live together. You are advocating that all four of us get divorced. Correct, Helen. The four of us will get divorced as soon as the divorce is finalized. I want to marry you the very next day. Will you marry me? It may appear that we only recently met, although we have known each other for many years. It's only been a few days since we hadn't considered the prospect of love. At the moment I am entirely committed to loving you. My sentiments for you are genuine, Helen. Please think about this when you visit my workplace. Drive carefully. I bent over and kissed her as she entered the car. This kiss promised the love that I was willing to give. She put a towel on the seat and drove away. As she left, I was wondering if she would come to my office, accept my offer, and where I would spend the night. Helen was already in the parking lot when I arrived. As soon as I parked, she rushed to open my door and slid into the small area between me and the steering wheel. I love you, she exclaimed impatiently. I'd like to wake up with you every morning. I'll marry you. She lingered for a moment, kissing me before asking, what are we going to do next? We need to speak with our husbands. Let me check the GPS to see where they are. Both beacons showed that they were inside Helen's home. Sit down, I said, we'll go to your place. 10 minutes later, we arrived at the house and parked behind her car in the driveway. Entering quietly through the back door, we heard faint sounds. After walking through the entire house, we discovered them on the floor of the living room. Elaine deceived me. They ignored our existence as they continued their actions. I encouraged Helen to sit on the sofa, and I took a seat beside her. Helen avoided looking me in the eyes. The situation was loaded with a variety of words and behaviors that were not always appealing. They eventually halted their shenanigans. That's when Sophia noticed us. Oh no, he exclaimed. Elaine noticed us and froze. Helen interrupted the stillness. You've damaged my carpet. Elaine ran to find her clothes, but Sophia remained seated on the floor, observing us. I mentioned that maybe they need some time to get ready and dressed. Oh my God, I feel terrible about this. This was not anything we had planned, she exclaimed as tears welled up in her eyes. Let's talk when you're feeling refreshed and ready to change, I offered when they stood up and exited the room. Helen was already trying to remove the stain on the carpet as I gathered their things and hurried to the restroom. You will determine the following steps. I informed her what house should we live in. I asked if you wanted to remain here or at my apartment. Why should I choose? She responded. It is their fault, they betrayed us. We need to make a decision, I insisted. Sophia and Elaine entered the room just then. I invited them to another sofa, and they sat at opposite ends. Helen eventually gave up and joined us. Sitting next to me on the couch, Sophia began to speak, but Helen interrupted him with a raised hand. Stopping him, then she looked at him and asked, Sophia, do you truly love this woman? Or is it just physical attraction? After a minute of stillness, Sophia lowered his gaze and confessed to Elaine. I guess I love her. I turned to Elaine and asked, and you, do you adore Sophia? Elaine responded immediately. If things were different, would you consider living together? Sophia paused before continuing. I don't want our marriage to end. So you're asking me for permission to keep seeing my wife? Do you believe Helen should face the repercussions of your actions on her own? She asked harshly. I did not want you to find out. I didn't want anyone to be wounded, Sophia admitted. I want to save my marriage, Helen inquired coldly. Do you mind if I had an extramarital affair? Sophia's eyes widened as he argued no. You are my wife, I continued. How would you react if I had an affair with Helen? Right on the carpet in your living room. Sophia was stunned, he remarked. It shouldn't be like that. Wait, are you connected? Helen incredulously asked. No. I have never been associated with Helen, I clarified. I assumed it would be fair if we acted out the scenario with both of you witnessing what was going on. So you could experience the emotional impact of betrayal. She wiped her tears with a napkin. Elaine apologized to me, expressing regret for offending me. Sophia accused Elaine of purposefully arranging and routinely visiting the Marriott for extramarital encounters, which made me even more upset. Helen instructed Sophia to pack his suitcase in 5 minutes and be out the door in 6. She urged him to call her lawyer and arrange for the return of the other items. Sophia stood motionless while Helen examined her watch. Then she turned to Elaine and informed her that she would be coming to our house shortly. Elaine has 5 minutes to gather her belongings and leave. Upon arrival, Helen insisted that they both call her lawyer for further preparations. She threatened that if any of them returned without consulting a lawyer, she would release damning images to everyone, including children. Helen warned Sophia that they only had 4 minutes. Sophia dashed for the bedroom. Helen began counting down. And when she reached 1 minute, I went to the bedroom door. You'd better depart before time runs out, I advised. Sophia hastily packed his belongings and went without saying anything to Helen or Elaine. Elaine, it is time for you to leave, Helen said. Don't forget to lock the door after we go. If Sophia returns, please call me. I informed him that the images would be on the internet before he could find them. I said to be cautious. We cannot foretell what Sophia will do, Helen warned. I followed Elaine as she left the house, and she followed my car to our home. I opened the door a notch to greet her. Tears streamed down her face as she entered the home. Once inside, she collapsed into a kitchen chair. Sobbing, I'm so sorry, Nick, she said. Good. That's how it should be, I responded in January. You began a relationship with Sophia, and our intimate relationship with you ended. Did I miss something? Have you been upset with me? No. It's simply that Sophia gave me a sense of importance. I think you can accomplish it without me. The youngsters do not appear to depend on me. You appear to have everything under control. Sophia made me feel valued. He did not even say goodbye as he left. He is not filed for divorce, so he does not want to remain with you. You were simply a convenient choice for him. Do you understand what your involvement was in this situation? I returned her eyes and gave her the answer she was searching for. She was a woman known for her unfettered morals who might be satisfied to be alone. I could only hope that everything she did was worth the consequences. This resulted in the breakdown of her marriage, her house, her potential future with me, and possibly even her relationship with her children. Elaine sat with tears flowing down her face. I fetched a Diet Coke from the refrigerator and sat in front of her. When the tears had stopped, I checked my watch and reminded her that she had the 5 minutes we had agreed upon. I noticed as soon as the oven's timer was set. When everything goes to plan, you will not be here a moment later. The door shut behind her as she left. I observed her load 2 luggage into the car and drove away with Sophia following in his car. In my office, I checked the camera screen and noticed that they were both parked close. As I started the video, I heard the car door open and Sophia get inside. Elaine's sobs rang throughout the car. They will not genuinely divorce us. Sophia tried to soothe her, but Elaine knew the truth. I was getting divorced and would never return to her. I used to be a decent wife, she mourned, feeling as if she had become nothing. What did you do to me? She blamed Sophia, her voice filled with anguish and rage. What are you planning to do now? She insisted, feeling abandoned and deceived. You do not care what happens to us. We were caught, and now you're abandoning me. She accused him and called him a jerk. If I could, I'd send these images to your children rather than mine. She threatened, her tone nasty and resentful. I cannot bring myself to do this. I can't bear the notion of my children seeing me with you. The person who destroyed my marriage, she cried, her voice breaking a little later. I heard the automobile door open and close. The motor started briefly, and the automobile drove away. I shut off the radio, feeling a rush of rage and hatred flood over me. Regardless of my emotions, I could stand to see Elaine suffer. While wandering through the garage, I noticed an empty tissue box. I came upon a set of locks that I purchased several years ago but never installed. When I eventually installed them, Elaine's keys no longer fit in my home. I quickly called Helen and inquired, "How are you?" She replied sadly she'd be back soon. Sophia arrived at the house and insisted on speaking with her. So she let him in. I quickly left the house, knowing that the travel would only take 10 minutes. I told Helen to contact me on my cell phone if he arrived before me. Sophia turned out to be even more awful than I had imagined. He dumped Elaine, exploited her for his personal pleasure, and cheated on me without hesitation. I blame him for his callousness and promise that I will never let him into my life again. Hold on, I will be there soon, I love you. The call quickly ended, leaving me with a heavy heart. I followed the speed limit and pulled into the driveway. I observed Sophia's car parked at the curb and found him standing on the porch deep in discussion. As soon as I closed the car door, he came to a stop and turned to face me. "Let me speak to Helen," he insisted. "No. That was your wife," I responded sternly. "I warned you not to return, but here you are. Remember what I pledged to do. Do not make me do this, I just want to talk with her." He insisted. "It is too late. I saw you and have already sent out images. I have more than 100 of them. I also mailed some to your children." I replied harshly. "Talking with Helen will not save your marriage. You will receive your divorce paperwork on Monday. Congratulations, you wanted to have fun. But you received more than you anticipated." Sophia ignored a neighboring police cruiser and approached me aggressively. I did not move as the attacker neared me. A tremendous hit to my chest pushed me to the ground. Just as he was ready to strike again, 2 police officers intervened and apprehended him. "I will find you," he yelled as he was handcuffed and placed in the back seat of a police cruiser. Helen came, and we spoke briefly with the authorities as the suspect shouted threats from the car. When the cops left, we returned to the building. "Did you actually submit these photos?" "No. It will only damage Sophia. My children are scheduled to visit next weekend for their mother's birthday. And if they are interested in the images, I will not show them. I hope they don't ask to view them." Witnessing Sophia's inappropriate behavior with Elaine was too much for me. I do not want our children to find out about this part of me. I wanted to understand the issue. "Why didn't you do it?" He created a bleak vision of my future filled with loneliness and a burning desire for him. Despite his statements, there was a clear lack of love for me, our children, and our family. There was a part of me that didn't dare to open the door, hoping that he and I could work things out. But while I stood there, I made a decision. I did not open the door when I noticed his automobile on the street. I understood I didn't need him to feel complete. Over the previous 4 days, I've recognized that I shouldn't be alone. I don't need his presence anymore. There is a man who adores me and is happy to demonstrate it. There's a man who has been looking after my children for a long time. You were the football coach, not Sophia. You went camping with us. You mended a leaking water heater in the doorway. I observed Sophia was unhappy and decided to call the cops. I talked with them, described the issue in detail, and communicated my concerns about his nasty tendencies. I noticed them driving up to the house. I was worried he would harm you, and he did. His punch caused you excruciating anguish. I was hoping you could kiss me to lessen the ache. It seems like a good idea. Perhaps we might go to the bedroom to relax a little." I hugged her, and she hugged me back as we proceeded to the bedroom. To my amazement, the room was completely vacant. The bed wasn't made, and there were no carpets on the floor. Despite the absence of decorations, we spent the evening in bed together. We were hugging, kissing, and enjoying each other's company when the sun rose. Helen's and my phones both rang as the light filled the room. Helen answered hers without getting out of bed, and I dashed into the hallway to respond. Todd, my oldest son, was on the line. Confused. Dad, what is going on? Todd revealed that he called his mother in the morning to arrange their approaching weekend visit, but she burst into tears and instructed him to call me. After hanging up, she disregarded any subsequent calls. When will all three of you be allowed to come home? If necessary, we can come over tonight. What's happening? He asked. I can't talk about it over the phone. Call me back and tell me how you intend to return. If you travel by airline, I will meet you at the airport. If you are traveling by automobile, please notify me when you return. You don't want to tell me about it on the phone, no? I responded, I apologize for keeping you waiting, but it is better this way. When the bell rang, I looked into the bedroom and noticed Helen, who was on the phone, was pale and lifeless. As soon as she noticed me, she motioned for me to approach. She interrupted the conversation for a second, closed the phone and whispered, "This is Carol. Her father called from prison yesterday night, asking for assistance with bail. She wants to know what occurred. Please find out when they can return. We desperately need to hold a family meeting. My kids are returning tonight. Let's meet at my house and spread the news." Sophia was still in detention, and Elaine's whereabouts were unknown. Helen instructed her daughter to return home and accompany her brother so that they could communicate while they were together. They were scheduled to meet at my house. Carol asked Helen a lot of questions, but Helen promised to answer them only when they were together. I contacted our lawyer to arrange for the delivery of the images and informed him of the attack and our future plans. He agreed to our proposal and offered to send the images personally. After preparing, I purchased packing boxes and put Sophia's belongings in them, storing them in the garage. Helen found a spare key for his car, which we also stored in the garage. Calls from Helen's phone were routed to mine before we arrived at my residence. Once inside, I started packing my belongings while Helen looked around the place and asked me for suggestions. When the phone rang, I checked the caller ID and handed the phone to Helen. Carol said she'd be there in an hour. Helen thanked her and concluded the chat. Shortly after, my children called to say they would also be there in an hour. Helen offered to order pizza and salad for delivery, which she did while collecting clothes and other items. When I came out of the bedroom, I felt compelled to do something to keep myself occupied. I discovered Helen standing at the window. I went over and hugged her, knowing she would be emotional. Any tears or fury were not directed at us but at disappointment, resentment and the sense that we had been misled. I persuaded myself that we had done nothing wrong and reminded myself of our mutual affection. I knew I could not do it without her. Yes, we can do it and so can you. I hope my presence here makes your life a little simpler, she murmured, bending down to kiss me. My son's car pulled up to the entryway just as the pizza delivery arrived. I am going to arrange the table, Helen exclaimed, hurrying into the kitchen. When I opened the front door, I noticed my son Todd helping Helen bring food into the home and quickly paid the delivery man. He looked around, taking in the spectacle before us. He saw Helen, but his mother was nowhere to be found. "Where's Mama?" responded. "I do not know." Helen's children appeared, and I welcomed them heartily. They began to ask questions, but I raised my hand to stop them. "The meal can wait," I said. "Let us all assemble in the living room, and I will explain everything." Helen's children sat on one sofa, mine on the other. I asked Helen to sit in a huge armchair and fetched a chair from the kitchen. I was about to sit down when there was a knock at the door. My lawyer Henry Hawkins gave me a huge envelope. He silently wished me luck when he noticed all of the youngsters in the living room. He asked if I needed to stay, but I declined with gratitude. After shutting the door behind him, I sat down and decided to tell a tale before addressing individual questions. When I started talking, everyone froze. I started fishing with some friends about a week ago. My acquaintance stated that he saw Elaine at the Marriott Hotel in the afternoon. Intrigued, I attempted to track her car using a GPS tracker a few days later. Elaine went back to the Marriott soon after. Helen's husband, Sophia Gray, entered via the same door after grasping the issue. I obtained Sophia's hotel records, which revealed that he had been renting the same room intermittently since January. The children exchanged glances, and Sophia's son pointed out that just because they shared a room does not mean they were unfaithful. The entire group nodded in accord. "You are correct," one of them said. I decided to hire someone to look into it, thinking that there was no affair. I also phoned Helen to ask if she knew anything about why Sophia was seen at the Marriott. Our lawyer recommended that we leave the city for a few days to gain a better understanding of the situation. Helen stated she traveled to the Mirage in Las Vegas, while I went to Treasure Island the next day. When I spoke with the lawyer, he said that he had images of Sophia and Elaine. "What about the photos in the envelope?" Carol asked, nodding to the envelope on the floor. "Yes. Helen and I have decided to postpone our return for another day. The scenario is quite terrible when we returned. They were at Helen's house. We caught them red-handed. We proposed that they get divorced so that they could be together. Sophia declined, but Elaine accepted. After allowing them to retrieve their personal stuff, we led them out. I haven't spoken with Elaine since. Helen contacted me after Sophia returned and threatened her on the porch. She notified the authorities, and Sophia was jailed after attacking me and threatening both of us. As far as I know, he remains in detention." The interrogation started. "Do you desire a divorce?" We both confirmed this. "Have you seen the photos? We witnessed them cheating on us in your mother's living room. You should not look at the photographs. They are required for legal reasons if necessary. Father is going to jail. He attacked me and threatened your mother in front of 2 police officers. I believe he will serve his sentence for this, Mom. How long ago did you learn that your father was unfaithful?" "I found out when Nick showed me the motel records. He took our retirement money to reserve a stay at the Marriott Hotel." "Wow," Carol exclaimed. The others nodded their agreement. "So what happens next?" one of them asked. "There will be modifications. I chose to sell my house. He is too big for me right now," Helen explained. "Mom, I do not want to move," her daughter interjected. "I'm considering getting a roommate," Carol said. "Mom, are you and Nick together?" Which changed the course of the conversation. Helen said that we had spent a lot of time in Las Vegas. However, upon returning home, we opted to prolong the relationship before discovering our spouse's adultery. And I had never kissed. But today I am honored to call him my lover and future husband. We hope you can accept the new reality we are facing. We adore each of you." There was a long period of stillness in the room. Carol eventually got up from her seat and approached me. She knelt down and tentatively accepted the packet. "I don't want to see these photos, but I feel compelled to." I hesitated to believe this story. "But if the images prove it is true, I will have no option," she replied with shaky palms. She cautiously opened the mail and glanced inside. She looked at just one snapshot before swiftly closing the package and exclaiming, "What a scoundrel!" She handed me the envelope containing the text. "You have to express your opinion about him." I was tempted to do so, but Helen's son stepped up and grabbed the mail from my hands. He spoke, then reached inside and removed roughly 10 photos. He gently studied each photo before returning it to the envelope. After that, we devoured the leftover pizza and salads at 6 p.m. We ate at a Chinese restaurant. Despite the obstacles, the children, who have been lifetime friends, have accepted their new status as members of a mixed family. While we were waiting for fortune cookies, my son Matt suggested that we arrange a hike this summer. Helen smiled and answered, "Some of my fondest memories from when you were younger were the hikes we took together." I remained mute for a minute until Helen's daughter Carol glanced at me and inquired, "May I, Dad?" I couldn't help but tears streamed down my face. How did she fall in love with me so fast? How could I refuse? They all agreed with her statements, may I add. Of course, it sounds fantastic. Let's organize our schedules and choose a date. We exited the restaurant. Our plans for the first family camping vacation were eventually approved. Resentment and sadness remained. But we looked ahead with hope. 4 years have gone by. Elaine has not appeared in court and has gone missing ever since. The next day, after speaking with the children on the phone, she withdrew money from her credit card and fled. Sophia is currently serving a prison sentence ranging from 2 to 5 years. The children have yet to visit him. The envelope remains with me and is safely preserved in our house safe. Every year, we continue our family custom of trekking together. Sophia had the chance to keep his home employment. And Helen, I wonder whether he ever considers it. I hope you enjoyed that story. Here is another one. It always seemed to take longer to reach the top. It was difficult to tell if the boys were looking forward to their day off or simply irritated that they had missed 2 hours. 2 hours into the 12-hour shift, the methane alarm went off. I still had the 4 checkers and their detonators in the yellow bag slung over my shoulder. There was no explosion planned for tonight. And I was once again tethered to the bag. The storehouse where the explosives were stored under lock and key would be open for as long as it took the guards to check their daily supply. I would take the yellow bag home with me again. It was a tremendous pain in the ass. But the salary gap compensated for the inconvenience. So, I collected my things from my locker and went to the door. I could see grey clouds billowing over the mountains to the east. By the time I reached the parking lot, Marty had warmed up the truck and was ready to leave. Damn it, Travis. I don't understand why you can't find an old beat-up truck to drive. You know I can't afford it since I have to pay for Donna's Mustang. I live in the impoverished house. It is difficult to feed 3 children while also supporting a wife who is very demanding. You are the most subservient guy I know. She has you wrapped around her finger since elementary school. Marty was correct. Donna became attached to me while we were both children. She was aggressive and domineering. But she was the most attractive girl in the neighborhood. I put up with all of her antics just to be with her. It got out of hand as soon as we left the parking lot. It rained relentlessly. It was a dark and cold rain. And you could tell it was going to last most of the night. The rain's main positive effect, in my opinion, was to remove cold dust from the world, of course. The farmers believed otherwise. The wipers on Marty's vintage F-100 flooded violently, leaving large stains across the windshield. The crack on the passenger side, as usual, began to ooze onto the dashboard. Yes, it was exactly what I needed. A dingy old truck when it rained. The drive to the trailer park took barely 15 minutes. The entire area turned to muck. It would be wonderful if they sprinkled gravel on it from time to time. All we needed was a down payment to drive away the trouble. The problem was that Donna always found a way to spend the money I set aside. I will pick you up at this time tomorrow, I said. Marty and I grew up together. Neither of us intended to work in the mines. But it turned out that way. He intended to join the Air Force. But they would not accept him without a high school graduation. I aspired to be a certified car technician. But that did not work out either. Listen, Travis. Where is the Mustang? It is difficult to miss a bright yellow automobile except when it's not present. I simply shrugged and walked through the door as he drove away. When I stepped in, all 3 of my sons were seated on the floor in front of the television. Where's your mother, Todd? An 8-year-old boy simply glanced at me and shrugged. When did she leave? Approximately 10 minutes after you left for work. I had the unmistakable impression that I was disrupting their TV viewing. What did she wear? Her crimson dress. I knew one thing for sure: she didn't wear that dress to the supermarket. It was low-cut and came up to her knees. I must say she looked great in that red outfit. I stored the canned items in the fridge. Tomorrow we still be fine. Did your mother feed you before she left? Todd was the only person that answered my questions. I made dinner. What did you all eat? Chocolate puffs. All 3 of us appeared to be transfixed to the television. It was clear that I was an undesired distraction. Todd, in my opinion, was too young to be responsible for himself, let alone his younger brothers. Terry was 6. And Sean was entering his 3rd year. Todd, if you get the chance, put on clean pants, Sean. It's very clear he peed his pants. I couldn't believe a 3-year-old wasn't potty trained yet. Donna was the type of mother who thought children should be reared on their own. I had a fast drink and went to pee. It was pouring outside. Yet I had an overpowering need to go find my wife. I wondered where she'd be tonight 4 years ago. Everything was fine. Donna had been seeing her friend Martha Lou. At first it was only once a week while I looked after the 2 boys while she was pregnant with Sean. The connection slowed down slightly but resumed once he was born. When I worked the night shift at the mine, Mom had a babysitter come in while I worked about 6 months ago. She began leaving them alone. Marty was correct about one thing throughout my relationship with Donna. I was in a subordinate role. I let her make the decisions. She always decided what we would do and where we would go. I had virtually no say in anything. She was such a delight to be around that I would do anything to make her happy. I believe that was my problem. The best aspect of our relationship was the sex. I had more sex than any other male I knew. And it was good sex. I attempted to minimize her extracurricular activities but failed horribly. Donna's father was a deputy sheriff when we married and was elected to the county sheriff's office soon after. He never liked me. He made it abundantly obvious to me that I was not suitable for his only daughter. I see now that he was correct. I couldn't provide for her in the way she expected. I went to one of the local pubs one night before Donna became pregnant with Sean and attempted to persuade her to accompany me home. I made no secret of it. Her father arrived less than 5 minutes later. Donna's father was a huge violent man. He pinned me against the wall in the center of the bar and told me in front of 100 people that if I ever touched his daughter again, he would beat the *T out of me. Donna calmed him down and left with me. That was the last time we talked about her running about. After Sean was born, she seemed to relish doing it simply to annoy me. A famous person once observed that everyone lives in quiet despair. I'm not sure who he was, but he was a brilliant guy. I saw my 3 sons lying on the floor and decided I didn't want to do it anymore. It was still raining. Mom, this is Travis. I need you to do me a favor. Mom and I were always on good terms except when it comes to Donna. She had a 6th instinct and never truly connected with my wife. Donna was intelligent and gorgeous. But her mother thought she was cruel and untrustworthy. I guess she was correct. Everyone was correct except Travis. Why are you not at work, boy, if you quit your job? How will you feed those 3 cubs? I do not know. They closed again due to a gas leak. I need you and Daddy to come grab the kids. I have to leave for a while. And I do not want to leave them alone. Where is your lovely wife, boy? I am not sure. There was a pause at the other end of the line. Do what you have to do, son. You know that your daddy and I will always be there for you. Thank you, Mama. Having a family might be beneficial at times. Donna had a cell phone, but I chose not to call her. The guys remained transfixed to the television while I put on my Michaelette and grabbed my yellow bag. I put an old army poncho over my head and walked out into the rain. My sons didn't appear to notice my departure. I wished I had the old pickup Marty had joked about. The distance between the trailer park and the main street was less than 1 kilometer. It became simpler as soon as I stepped onto the pavement. The brain quickly made me feel worse than I already did. My poncho only reached my knees. So my jeans became saturated within the first 10 minutes. For some reason my left sock got soaked. I made a mental note to wear waterproof boots again when I had the time. The poncho kept my head dry. But the rain pelted my face every few minutes. I had to brush away the water merely to gaze out. The majority of the bars were naturally located on the opposite side of town. This was a bizarre town. One side of Main Street had railroad lines, while the other had stores, of course. The stores had closed. Now they are the ones that are still operational. The street lights were all operating correctly. and raindrops could be seen dropping on the shop windows. 2 cars stopped and offered me a ride, but I waved them away. The southern portion of the city stopped right before the interstate highway. Joe's truck stop was the last place that remained open prior to the paving of the highway. There was a Joe's coffee shop here. It supplied tasty cuisine and excellent coffee. The truckers enjoyed it because diesel was always a few cents less than the big guys. Between where I was and Joe's, there were at least a dozen bars and half as many motels. On nights like tonight, I didn't imagine Donna would want to drive very far. All I needed to do was find a yellow Mustang. Unfortunately, I couldn't afford to hire a taxi to take me around town. The rain fell steadily. The thunder seemed to have subsided, but the water continued. The first 3 bars were small and dirty, with largely older individuals sitting and sipping from the same glass for hours at a time. Donna would not have frequented such venues, but they were still worth visiting. I stood on the street looking out the windows. The hot places were located further down the road, where neon lights appeared to flicker in the humid air. My left foot was very wet and began to feel cold. I continued on inspecting the automobiles. They all appeared gray until you got close. About 50 meters or so. The night rain is probably playing a trick on your eyes. I had never noticed it before. The traffic circle was the most popular location in town. Donna and I went out. We always ended up at the roundabout. After navigating a couple more queues, I eventually arrived. It was large enough that I was obliged to enter. I stood at the end of the counter, drenched as a wretched puppy. Damn it, Travis. You look bad. What the heck are you doing going around in this weather? Walt was a good bartender who also owned the carousel. He strolled over to me with a smile on his face, holding out a dry bar towel. Do not move, Travis. I don't want to mop the entire down floor. I wiped my face and rubbed the towel through my hair. Even with the hood of my poncho up, my hair was completely saturated. When I returned the towel to him, there was a dirty rag in its place. I looked around the room and noticed only 100 people, including Martha Lou. There were 2 guys with her, although it appeared that she was alone. She left around 20 minutes ago, Travis. I handed Walt the empty bottle and nodded, letting him know I heard and understood. She was with Alvin Pittman. He frequently goes to Whispering Pines, which has a parking lot out back. I threw the poncho's hood back over my head, nodded to Walt again and walked out the door. The rain had subsided, but it was still falling. Lightning flashed far to the west, and the thunderclaps had nearly ceased. The trek to Whispering Pines was only 10 minutes long. I caught myself shaking my left leg every 50 meters or so. The yellow Mustang would park directly next to Alvin's King Cab dual truck. There were no lights in the back parking lot. I suppose there was a reason for that. I barely stayed for around 5 minutes. I was proficient at my job and proud of it. The trek back to the roundabout appeared to be much faster than the walk to Whispering Pines. The rain had subsided to a light drizzle, so I removed my poncho before going inside. Walt clearly didn't know how to approach me or what to say. He was a decent guy, and I know he didn't want to be known as the one who delivered the awful news. He had no clue what I was up to. I smiled lightly at him to soothe him, then asked the waitress to invite Martha Lou in. What's up, Travis? Why the hell are you not at work? I could hear sarcasm in her voice. It was everything I could do not to hit her in the face. Where is she, Martha Lou? Where the hell is she? Donna, and don't lie to me. Well, I believe she is at home with your kids. Isn't that where she should be? Perhaps you should return there and mind your own business. Walt sensed the tension and handed me a beer, hoping to lighten the mood. I drank half a glass and leaned into the bar. I'm going to find her and murder her and any men she's with. Do you understand? Suddenly, she lost all of her swagger. Martha Lou seemed really surprised. That simple phrase went entirely against my personality, and everyone in the neighborhood knew it. Walt appeared stunned, but I observed a faint smirk on his face. Do you understand, Martha Lou? She nodded but didn't say anything. She was usually quick with her lines but not tonight. As she approached her table she gave me 2 looks. I handed Walt the emptied glass. And he insisted on shaking my hand before leaving. He had never done that before across the room. Martha Lou was feverishly conversing on the phone. I picked up the poncho outside the entrance and dropped it along with an empty yellow bag into the garbage can next to the bar. I wasn't attempting to hide anything because I wasn't planning to stay here. I was sure my head would go to hell for unaccounted dynamite. But I wasn't going back, so I thought I had about 10 minutes to get to the truck stop if I walked quickly. The Joes were busy as usual, the asphalt was wet. But the down rain had stopped. I had to speak with 3 drivers before one of them offered me a ride. Houston seemed like a fantastic destination to me. A loud explosion erupted approximately half a kilometer distant from where we were pulling into the freeway. We watched as an orange balloon and black smoke ascended up. Apparent even in the dark. My driver said a few phrases that I appear to have missed. He didn't notice the smile on my face as I stared out the window. After that, I had little trouble acquiring a job at the Pasta de Conchas mine near Palau. They were delighted to find a certified blasting technician after numerous guys died. I appeared to have helped them meet some of their insurance needs. The yellow Mustang vanished without a trace. Along with my darling wife. They had a memorial service but there was no casket. The blast wave threw Alvin across the parking lot, leaving him sprawled on the wall of a trash. I felt bad for Alvin, but at least he got a funeral. I don't think I can return home because there is no statute of limitations on what I did. And blasting is a federal violation. The ATF also wants to find me this summer. Mom and Dad will bring the boys. At least I no longer have to wonder.